very warm welcome. As you all know, Prime Minister Narendra Modi has set an ambitious target of transforming India into a $5 trillion economy in the next 5 years. But with the weak economic growth and high unemployment and increasing trade tension, is this possible? If yes, how do we achieve this audacious goal? This is Arjun Mohan, the host for today. I'm here at Pi Data Center, the Asia's largest uptime Tier 4 data center. While all the other business leaders set their business in Tier 1 cities, this leader has a different and unique perspective altogether. He has worked in Intel for almost 2 decades and is a technology expert. Without much delay, let me welcome you, the Chairman and the CEO of Pi Data Centers, Mr. Kalyan Vopareddi. Hello, sir.
Hello, Anju.
Welcome. Sir, before moving on to the discussions on your view on the Indian economy, I want to understand what motivated you to actually build such a world-class data center in a Tier 2 city, despite you being from Intel and worked there for 2 decades and from United States.
Yeah, so I have a lot of passion for data centers, perhaps me being with Intel for a very long time. And that's where this passion started. And when I came back to India and when I wanted to start and build a data center, to me, I think if you look at India today, the Tier 1 cities, the very big cities like Mumbai or Bangalore, Delhi, Chennai, I think the infrastructure has peaked out almost a decade ago. And I think we are overstraining the existing infrastructure. So to me, I think the data centers are supposed to be built in places where it's very sustainable, highly scalable for a very long time. Total cost of ownership should be low, high quality fiber, good human resources, high quality power and low cost power. So some of these things are very critical for establishing a data center. So when we looked at it, I think there couldn't be a perfect place for the next decade or 2 decades of India. I think Tier 2 cities are the best choice. And some cities especially have some very good infrastructure. So it's a perfect way for us to enter the country and start in these places where it's highly sustainable for the next decade or 2 plus. I'm one of those people who believe that Tier 2 cities and especially rural India are going to contribute the next big chunk or the share of the upcoming GDP growth.
That's great to hear, and thanks for sharing it with us, sir. So coming back to our current Indian economy scenario, do you think the India becoming a $5 trillion economy is achievable, and why?
I think it's audacious and challenging, but I think it's certainly achievable. See, the reason I say that is today, if you look at it, India is going at a growth rate of 4.5% as per the recent stats, and we are close to a $3 trillion economy. So we need to add another 2 more. In the last 5 to 6 years, I think we have added about $1 trillion to the economy, which is very good. So we need to double that in the next 5 to 6 years. I think the way it would be achievable is we need to make India needs to make every citizen a stakeholder in this growth. What I mean by that is, if you look at the urban population in the major cities, the contribution has been, obviously there, but if you look at the rural India, it's lagging far behind. If you look at some numbers, right, urban India contributes to more than 50% of the GDP, wherein the population is about 20%. So 20% is contributing to more than 50%, and 80% of the population is contributing to less than 50% of the GDP. So you can look at the inequality between rural and urban. If we make rural India a major stakeholder in the economic growth in every sector, across all the sectors, be it healthcare, education, industries, airlines, like this, right? So the number of industries out there, every single vertical, if we make people in rural India stakeholders, I think it's certainly achievable.
I think there's still a rural and urban divide still exists, sir. Do you think so?
There is a significant of rural and urban divide. Unfortunately, I think while India has been one of the greatest economies, it's been growing significantly over the last decade or so. But if you were to like kind of compare rural India to urban India as two separate entities, I'd say the per capita income of a person in rural India, that too, I mean, especially villages and stuff, the income is probably less than $1. Even on an average, if you look at it, on an average, it is about less than $2. But more specifically, if you go deeper, it's less than $1. I mean, this is probably equal to some of the poorest countries in the world out there. So while on one hand we are growing very, very quickly, fantastic growth, there is a complete sector, significant major sector of India in rural areas that is still below the poverty line, which is almost on par with some of the poorest countries out there. So I think if we make every citizen in rural India stakeholders, build out infrastructure, roads, digital infrastructure, and make everybody. And the other thing is, I think creating jobs, right? Creating high quality jobs, sustainable jobs. Typically, if you look at it, construction has been, one of the major sectors. But I think that's not, it doesn't provide job security. So I think it's key to create sustainable jobs in rural India, thereby and promoting industries in rural India. So thereby, I think adding this huge chunk of the next 2 trillion will have to come from rural.
So, what should the government do to boost the employment in rural parts of the country?
I think the first thing is decentralization, because as I mentioned earlier, the tier 1 cities are already strained out to the max, almost a decade ago. So decentralization is the key. I mean, in my point of view, what they should do is enable industries, which they're doing, but I think it's not enough. Enable industries in rural areas where they have certain incentives, right? I think not just certain incentives, but I think an ecosystem needs to be created for certain business hubs to be created in rural areas across the country. And not just the companies, but the incentives in the sense that probably government should look at giving tax rebates or tax deductions for people who work in rural India. What this will do is, the magic of this is, when you have such a vibrant ecosystem, a good company to work for, people would want to come to places that are less polluted, less traffic, better quality of life. And on top of it, if government can do tax rebates or tax reductions for people who work in rural areas, I think this will enable reverse migration. Over the last few decades, if you look at it, people have moved from rural areas to urban areas for better quality of life, for jobs. But today, with the broken infrastructure and India straining its tier 1 cities infrastructure and maxing out its limits beyond a certain point, I think we see the problems, right? When there is rain for 2 days, we see what happens to our cities. So I think reverse migration is the key. They should enable this, and I think the government should seriously think about looking at giving tax rebates to people who, when I say tax rebates, income tax, reductions in income tax for people who work in rural India, especially for the people who reverse migrate back into rural India and work in rural India.
So better digital and physical infrastructure also is required when we talk about the
Yes. I mean, definitely. I think when it comes to physical infrastructure, I think these business hubs in rural areas needs to be created, and for people to travel from one business hub to the other in a single day, for example, infrastructure is the key. Migration of goods, right? It's very, very important. Like for example, India is big on service industry. I think more than 50% of our GDP, contribution is coming from service industry. So I think these service industries need to, going back to my comment about reverse migration, I think we should look at, seriously, the government should look at encouraging, not only encouraging, maybe mandating some of these, at least the new establishments. 75% of the new establishments should be done in rural areas. And if we do that for the next decade, there will be an equilibrium. And the only way to do that is obviously, physical infrastructure needs to be fantastic. Coming to digital, I think India has done quite a bit in the last decade, especially in terms of digital infrastructure. But truly, I think there is a little bit more to be done in terms of involving, especially the rural citizens, people under the poverty line. How do we make the stakeholders creating awareness for these people in rural areas and making them play a part in the digital economy. So yes, absolutely. I think a lot of room for improvement in the digital infrastructure, and significant amount of leap needs to be taken in physical infrastructure, especially in rural India.
There's a lot of debate happening on the Data Localization Act. What is your view on it?
I think, in my point of view, we are already late. I think the law is already late, especially for a country like India with more than a billion people, a lot of data being generated, citizen data, personal data, a lot of security and privacy is required. A lot of countries have already implemented this law in their own shapes and forms. So there is nothing wrong in my point of view, and I think it's very important and critical to have data privacy laws, data security laws, data localization laws. Data is the new oil and the new money, right? So we need to take care of it. It's a national treasure, and India needs to take care of its national treasure. So it's very important that India implements a very comprehensive data localization law, and with data centers like Pi in the country. India is building some of the best data centers in the world, and we are currently standing in one of them. So with a data center like this, like Pi, available with fantastic security that adheres to all the local laws, I think it's the need of the hour for India to store data within India. And I think as we discussed quite a bit about rural India and tier 2 cities, India needs to seriously think about promoting industries in rural India, establishing data centers in tier 2 cities and beyond for its 1.5 billion population, and to become probably a 2 billion population in the next few years to come. So a strong data localization law is required in my point of view.
Thank you so much for sharing your valuable insights. I appreciate that. And very happy New Year and more success to you.
Thank you, Anju. A very happy New Year to you too.